Have you ever looked at something broken, discarded, or forgotten, and wondered if it could become beautiful again? Today, you'll see how old drums, twisted roots, and even glass cups can be reborn into stunning garden and patio designs. Welcome to Simply DIY, a place where small ideas grow into big inspirations. This video is not a tutorial, but a vision. Every picture you see is meant as inspiration, a spark for you to shape with your own creativity. Use what you have, make it your own, and let it bloom. And before we begin, let me say this. I'm not just another voice online. Behind this channel is a real story and a real family. When you like, comment, or subscribe, it's more than numbers. You're helping keep a dream alive and giving hope one small click at a time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing me. Imagine sitting by your small patio table, where sunlight gently touches the rim of a simple glass cup. Inside, a little world is alive. Fresh soil, tiny roots stretching, and above them blossoms of petunias in pink, purple, and white. It feels almost magical how something as ordinary as a glass, once forgotten at the back of a kitchen cabinet, now becomes a stage for beauty in its purest form. This is the heart of upcycling, seeing value where others see waste. With just a scoop of soil and a few flower seeds, you can bring life into the smallest spaces. On a windowsill, 3 glasses in a row tell 3 different stories: a geranium glowing red, a marigold shining golden, and a sprig of lavender releasing its calm fragrance into the air. The glasses make their roots visible, a reminder of how growth always begins quietly, beneath the surface. The charm of these glass cup flower pots is not just in their looks, but in how they transform our routines. Watering them becomes a ritual, moving them closer to the sun becomes a reason to pause, and watching them bloom becomes an everyday meditation. Even in the tiniest yards or small patios, these little vessels of life offer a chance to create moments of peace. And perhaps, that is the true gift of DIY, crafting not only decoration, but also serenity. There is something calming about standing by a bright kitchen window and seeing a row of glass cups, each one nurturing its own little patch of green. In one, basil spreads its broad leaves, ready to be plucked for tonight's pasta. Another glass holds tall sprigs of rosemary, releasing a soft, pine-like fragrance every time your hand brushes past. Beside it, curly parsley adds a delicate touch of freshness, almost like lace growing from the soil. The beauty of using glass cups is in their transparency. You can watch the roots slowly weave their way through the soil, like nature sketching its own artwork. It makes the growing process visible, reminding us that patience always rewards us with life. With only a handful of soil and a few seeds, you can create an herb garden that fits perfectly on a windowsill or a small patio table. Every sip of mint tea, every sprinkle of oregano over your meal, carries with it the quiet joy of growing something with your own hands. And the best part is, it doesn't require a large backyard or an expensive setup. Just a few forgotten cups, a little light, some water, and time. In this simplicity, we discover not only flavor for our dishes, but also a touch of peace for our days. There is a quiet poetry in roots. Once hidden deep in the soil, they held trees firm against the winds, unseen but essential. And now, in a second life, those same roots can hold something new: a coffee table, a place for conversation, or simply a corner of calm in your backyard. Imagine a smooth wooden or glass tabletop resting on twisted, organic roots. Each curve tells a story of years spent growing underground, shaping itself in silence. By using roots as table legs, you are not just recycling, You are capturing nature's own sculpture and turning it into functional art. No two tables will ever be the same, because no two roots grow alike. That uniqueness is what makes the piece truly yours. To create this, you don't need machines or complex skills. A sturdy piece of root, carefully cleaned and dried, becomes the foundation. The top could be reclaimed wood, a slab of glass, even an old door given new life. What matters is balance, the meeting of raw natural form and human touch. And when you place a cup of coffee, or a book, or a vase of flowers on this table, it carries a sense of harmony. It whispers of connection, between past and present, between forest and home, between utility and beauty. That is the gift of upcycling. It teaches us to see wonder in the overlooked, and to live with nature rather than apart from it. In every garden, borders tell a story. They mark where one thing ends and another begins, but they can also be more than just a line of separation. Imagine using tree roots, shaped by years of growth underground, as the edging of your garden fence. Their raw, knotted texture weaves a rustic frame that feels both timeless and alive. As sunlight touches the curves of the roots, they seem to glow with history. They become more than discarded wood. They are guardians of your flowers, your vegetables, your quiet spaces. Along a path, the roots guide your steps like natural sculptures. Beside a flower bed, they lift the colors of daisies, marigolds, or even tall sunflowers, giving each bloom a stage to shine. Creating a root fence edging does not demand expensive tools. It is an invitation to work with what nature already gives us. Find roots that twist with character, clean them gently, and lay them along your borders. They settle into the soil almost as if they were meant to be there all along. And perhaps, as you water your plants or walk the garden path, you'll notice how these roots remind you of something deeper. That beauty is often born from what lies beneath, and with a little care, even the hidden things can frame life in the most extraordinary way. There's a special kind of joy in walking into your backyard and finding tomatoes hanging heavy on the vine, their skins glowing red beneath the sunlight. And what makes it even more meaningful is when those vines are growing from something once forgotten, an old metal drum, given a second life as a planter. Drums, with their size and depth, are perfect for vegetables like tomatoes. They hold the soil generously, giving roots space to spread, and with a little paint or polish, they can brighten up a corner of your yard or patio. Imagine 3 drums lined up along the fence, one bursting with yellow blossoms, another carrying clusters of green tomatoes slowly ripening, and the third overflowing with bright red fruit ready to be picked. It feels like a living artwork, constantly changing, rewarding your patience with abundance. To begin, fill the drum with rich, well-drained soil. Place your seedlings deep, water them with care, and let the sun do its quiet work. Before long, you'll notice the vines climbing, blossoms appearing, and fruits forming in bunches. It's not just gardening, it's a reminder that with a little imagination, even something discarded can bring nourishment to your table. And when you sit on a nearby chair, watching your plants thrive, perhaps you'll realize that the beauty of DIY lies not in perfection, but in the harmony between resourcefulness, nature, and the satisfaction of creating something with your own hands. In the corner of a tiny yard, an old drum rises tall, transformed into something alive and full of flavor. From its sides, herbs spill outward, sprigs of rosemary standing proud, clusters of parsley soft and green, and basil leaves glowing under the daylight. On top, mint and lettuce cascade like a crown, making the whole structure look like a tower of life. This is the beauty of a vertical herb garden. It is proof that even the smallest spaces can hold abundance if we look at them with creativity. With just a few simple cutouts on the drum, every pocket becomes a new home for a plant. Water trickles down from the top, feeding each level, so that even in limited soil, the garden thrives. Imagine stepping outside on a summer morning, running your fingers through fresh thyme, inhaling its fragrance, then snipping a handful of oregano for dinner. It feels personal, almost intimate, as though your meals carry not just flavor, but also the care you've poured into growing them. And what makes it special is its simplicity. You don't need acres of land or an elaborate greenhouse. Just a discarded drum, some soil, seeds, and sunlight. From waste, you create nourishment. From something ordinary, you craft a piece of beauty that whispers a quiet truth, that even the smallest corners of our lives can bloom, if only we let them. There is something grounding about tending to a raised garden bed. When you cut an old drum in half, fill it with soil, and plant it with life, it suddenly becomes more than metal. It becomes a vessel of growth. In these raised beds, lettuce unfurls like gentle hands, spinach stretches toward the sun, and kale rises sturdy, ready to nourish. Raised garden beds hold a quiet secret. They make everything easier. The soil warms faster, drains better, and stays rich with nutrients. Vegetables thrive, not buried in the hard ground, but lifted into their own space where roots can breathe. Imagine strawberries spilling over the edge of one bed, their red fruits glistening in the morning light, while in another, onions and radishes peek shyly from the earth. It is not about having a large yard. Even a corner of a patio or a narrow strip by a fence can host a harvest if you give it form. The beauty of a drum-raised garden bed is in its simplicity. You reuse what might be trash and turn it into abundance. And with each seed you sow, each watering can you pour, you create a rhythm of care that brings peace to your days and food to your table. In every leaf and every fruit, you'll find a reminder. When we lift something up, when we nurture it, it grows stronger, and so do we. In every home, there's always that one quiet corner of the patio, a space that often feels too small to matter. Yet with a little imagination, even this forgotten corner can bloom into a sanctuary. Picture a recycled drum, painted in soft colors, standing proudly with flowers spilling over its rim. Geraniums glow red, marigolds burn golden, and their petals seem to catch every drop of sunlight. This is the charm of a mini drum garden. It doesn't ask for much, just a corner of space and a spark of creativity. By placing one or two drums together, you create not only beauty, but also harmony. One can host herbs that scent the evening air, another can grow cherry tomatoes that brighten summer meals, while a third carries petunias in a burst of color. Each drum tells a different story, yet together they weave a scene that feels both simple and alive. What makes it practical is how easily it adapts. A drum is deep enough for roots to grow strong, but compact enough to fit into places where traditional gardens can't. And when you sit in that corner, perhaps with a chair and a cup of tea, you'll realize the garden is not just about plants. It's about creating a moment of rest, a pause in your day where you feel surrounded by life, even in the smallest of spaces. So next time you look at your patio corner, see it not as empty, but as waiting, ready to be transformed into a living picture that grows with every season. Along the quiet line of a backyard fence, even the simplest glass cup can become a lantern of life. Hanging gently from hooks or twine, each transparent vessel cradles soil, roots, and green shoots reaching out to the sun. Some carry herbs, mint that refreshes the air, basil with its sweet fragrance, while others overflow with blossoms of petunias, marigolds, or ivy geraniums trailing downward like soft ribbons of color. What makes this idea so inspiring is how effortless it feels. Glass cups, once forgotten in the back of a cupboard, find a second purpose as miniature hanging planters. Their clear walls reveal the hidden world beneath the soil, where roots spread like delicate artwork. And as the sunlight filters through, reflections dance across the fence, turning the garden into a canvas that changes with the time of day. It doesn't take much to bring this vision alive. Just a few sturdy hooks, some potting soil, and plants that thrive in your climate. The effect is immediate. A plain fence becomes a living gallery, a vertical garden that invites you to pause every time you step outside. And in these small cups, there is a quiet reminder. Growth does not always need space. Sometimes it only needs care. With each watering, each moment of tending, you are not just feeding plants. You are nurturing beauty in places where no one expected it. Sometimes, the most beautiful ideas begin with the simplest things. Picture an old drum, worn with time, cut into pieces and given a coat of bright paint. Lined up along the edge of a garden, these curved sections transform into a playful border, separating a patch of daisies or fresh spinach from the lawn. Suddenly, what was once only scrap becomes a frame of color, holding life in place and making it shine. There is a certain charm in this kind of upcycling. Each section of drum carries its own character, whether painted white for a clean look or in bold colors that echo the brightness of the flowers they guard. And because the metal is sturdy, it lasts through the seasons, giving structure to a small garden without the cost of store-bought edging. This is what makes it practical. A tiny yard, a narrow patio, even a modest backyard can find new definition with just a few cut drums. The border not only organizes space, but also gives plants a clear stage. Tomatoes stand tall inside, herbs spill gently over the edge, and flowers bloom in contrast against the metal's painted surface. And as you walk along the path or sit on a nearby chair, you notice how the simple curve of a drum has reshaped the entire atmosphere. It reminds us that beauty doesn't always require wealth. Often, it only needs a little imagination, a steady hand, and the courage to see possibility where others see waste. There's a certain serenity that comes from sitting in a place where nature itself has shaped the furniture. Imagine a small patio, where a coffee table rests on the intertwined twists of old roots, each curve carved by time and weather. Beside it, two root chairs invite you to sit, cushions laid gently on top, ready to cradle you in comfort. On the table, a teapot and cups wait, as if the space itself is asking you to pause, breathe, and simply be. What makes root furniture so special is its authenticity. No two pieces are ever alike, each one carrying the unique form of the tree it once belonged to. By reclaiming roots that would otherwise be discarded, you create not only a functional piece, but also a sculpture, a living story placed in your home. With a glass top or a simple slab of wood, these roots become sturdy foundations for tables, while larger ones can be shaped into chairs that blend seamlessly with the greenery around. This kind of DIY project isn't about perfection. It's about embracing the organic, allowing natural forms to guide design. A small patio corner transforms into a relaxation zone, not because of luxury, but because of harmony. The roots connect the earth beneath your feet with the life growing in your garden, making the entire space feel alive. And when the day grows quiet, sitting there with a book or a glass of lemonade, you realize it's not just furniture. It's a reminder that beauty often lies in what we choose to honor, to repurpose, and to cherish. As the evening settles in, a garden changes character. What was bright and lively in the sunlight becomes soft, glowing, and almost dreamlike. Imagine glass cups, once ordinary, now hanging gently from a fence or resting on a table, each one holding a flicker of light. Some cradle candles, their flames dancing in the breeze, while others glow with tiny strings of fairy lights that shimmer through the transparent glass. It's a transformation that feels magical yet simple to create. With only a few cups, some twine, and inexpensive lights, you can turn a small yard or patio into a space that feels like a retreat. The glow reflects off the glass, casting gentle patterns across wood, stone, and leaves. Flowers such as lavender, daisies, or petunias beneath the lights seem to bloom again, this time not from the sun but from the warmth of your design. The beauty of this idea lies in how adaptable it is. Whether you want a quiet corner for evening tea, a backdrop for gathering with friends, or just a place to breathe after a long day, these lights create an atmosphere that soothes. And because it's DIY, you can shift the arrangement whenever inspiration strikes. Hang them higher, group them closer, or scatter them across the patio floor for a starlit effect. It reminds us that light doesn't only chase away darkness. Sometimes it adds depth, wonder, and a sense of calm that lingers long after the night has grown still. In every garden, there's space not only for plants, but also for art. Imagine a recycled drum, once dull and forgotten, now painted in earthy tones and brimming with flowers or tomatoes. Beside it stands an old tree root, weathered by time, its natural twists and knots forming shapes that look almost sculpted by an artist's hand. Together, they create more than just decoration. They become a statement of harmony between utility and beauty. This idea works beautifully in small spaces because it layers functions. The drum gives life, holding soil and nurturing plants, while the root provides form, adding texture and character to the scene. Place them in a corner of your patio or along a fence, and suddenly the area feels intentional, as though you've built not just a garden, but an outdoor gallery. What makes this project so inspiring is that it requires little more than what you already have at hand. An old drum can be cut, painted, or left rustic, while roots can be found after storms or collected from old wood piles. Clean them, position them upright or sideways, and let them stand proudly as sculptures that tell their own story. And when sunlight falls across the plants and roots, you'll notice how the contrast of living green and aged wood creates a balance. One growing, one enduring. It is a gentle reminder that even the most ordinary materials, when placed with care, can transform a backyard into a place of wonder and quiet reflection. There is something deeply satisfying about stepping into your backyard and finding food growing right where you live. Imagine a row of painted drums, once abandoned, now overflowing with life. In one, lettuce spreads wide and crisp, ready for a fresh salad. In another, bright red chili peppers dangle like tiny lanterns, glowing against their green leaves. And in a third, basil and parsley rise together, carrying the fragrance of a summer kitchen. This is the gift of an edible garden, beauty and nourishment in the same space. A single drum holds enough soil to grow tomatoes that climb tall, strawberries that cascade over the edge, or spinach that fills the air with its deep green color. And because drums can be moved, painted, and grouped in endless ways, you can shape your garden to fit the smallest patio or the narrowest yard. The process itself is simple, but it feels meaningful. Add rich soil, choose your seeds, and let the sun and rain do their quiet work. Before long, you'll notice the transformation. Blossoms turning into fruit, green shoots stretching into leaves, and the joy of harvesting something grown by your own hands. What makes this idea so powerful is that it blends practicality with artistry. You aren't just reusing trash. You're crafting a garden that feeds your eyes, your soul, and your table. And each time you pick a tomato or gather herbs from these drums, you taste not only freshness, but also the quiet reward of creativity made real. Sometimes the most inspiring gardens are not built from expensive designs, but from a gentle mix of things once considered useless. Imagine a small backyard where an old drum, painted bright, is overflowing with tomatoes. Beside it, a twisted root stands like a sculpture, anchoring the space with its raw beauty. Along the fence, glass cups hang gracefully, each one filled with herbs or blossoms that catch the light. This is where creativity finds its fullest expression, not in using one material, but in combining many. The drum gives depth for vegetables, strong enough for kale, spinach, or even strawberries to thrive. The root offers character, shaping furniture or standing proudly as natural art. And the glass cups bring delicacy, turning transparency into a frame for roots and soil, reminding us that growth begins unseen. The beauty of this approach is its flexibility. No matter the size of your yard or patio, these elements can be arranged in countless ways. A drum in the corner, roots along a pathway, cups as a vertical display. Together they form a layered story, functional, artistic, and personal. And as you sit among them, watching the play of sunlight on leaves and wood and glass, you realize something deeper. Upcycling is not only about saving money or reducing waste. It is about shaping a space that carries your spirit, one that grows food, shelters flowers, and reflects the quiet joy of making beauty with your own hands.